Hello, and welcome to Point Counterpoint, the 46360 show. Today is February 24th, 2018 edition. The opinions expressed by the show's hosts, myself, Dwayne Perry, and Anthony Tony Hendricks, will many times conflict, thus the title, Point Counterpoint. Point Counterpoint is a weekly issue show for our area. Point Counterpoint always lets you judge for yourself. We live in an information free-for-all. It's hard to see through all the misinformation and get to the accurate facts, what's right and best for our community. We will not libel, discriminate, or disrespect anyone or their views. We believe in the constitutional First Amendment, right of free speech, and we support anyone who voices their opinion as part of their duty to their community. This program brings you just that, an unedited, honest, candid discussion of issues. The producers of Point Counterpoint are solely responsible for the content of the show. But because the show is not rehearsed, we take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by our guests or for the information they gather from public sources. We will adhere to all applicable federal, state, and local regulations concerning limits of public speech and program content. The intent of this show is to thoroughly research current issues that affect our community, present the facts surrounding the issues, and discuss the pros and cons. Then, present to our viewing audience what we together or individually feel is the best solution for both the community and the public. Point Counterpoint 46360 show is a property of its producers, Dwayne Perry and Anthony Tony Hendricks, and may not be rebroadcast without the written permission of its producers. The producers take no responsibility for the opinions of others in the postings of comments in chat rooms, blogs, video logs, forum posts, or other media. We welcome and encourage ideas and suggestions for the show. We can be reached at 46360show at excite, EXCITE.com. Our shows will air on Comcast Cable Access and will be rebroadcast by us on YouTube under the label Point Counterpoint 46360 show. Again, welcome to Point Counterpoint, the 46360 show, brought to you by Dwayne Perry and Anthony Tony Hendricks. We hope you enjoy the topics, the discussion, and the show. Well, let's get started, Tony. What's on our agenda for today?
Well, welcome to the party. Boy, still too much to discuss, but we're going to try to keep it down to our typical topics. We want to talk about the 80-20, which is now going to be the 2080 plan from Trump and the infrastructure in the state of Indiana and the United States of America. Do you want to talk about the Michigan City?
Our bonding. We've said before we talked about rebonding. But we'll get into that.
We want to talk about $75 million in education funding that came from downstate. If anyone's read the news articles, we want to discuss that. Interstate tolling and how it relates to Indiana does not pick winners and losers, and by the Constitution we cannot. And then if we have time, and it might be in the next show, we want to talk about the Indiana Supreme Court case on Lake Michigan beachfront. That is so many facets in that. It's unbelievable, and we'll definitely bring some more pictures for next show because we would like to really, that might be a little taste in the next show too.
Yeah, that's a precedent-setting court case.
Yeah, and I understand that is going to the U.S. Supreme Court, but we'll see. Okay, the 80-20 plan, 2080 plan.
Traditionally, the funding situation for municipalities has been they put up 20% of the funding for a project, the federal government puts up 80%. Well, President Trump, in his new infrastructure plan, wants to reverse that, apparently to reduce the federal deficit. He's turning it right around and saying from this point on municipal projects, the communities affected will put up 80% and the federal government will put up 20%. Well, with Michigan City, as we've said in previous shows, already currently has an indebtedness through sale of bonds for projects, which are loans, $69 million, which is almost 6 times our annual revenue from the blue chip casino. Almost 6 years worth of revenues. This new infrastructure plan dramatically affects what this city can do in the future.
Well, and you're going to correct me here, since you've been the council president and council person, that's like 1.5 times the city budget.
Oh, absolutely.
About
Absolutely.
$40 million in the city budget, so we're about, well, more than that. We're more than 1.5 times the yearly city budget in indebtedness. And, well, you see I'm sitting on the big document here still, because I want to do a little bit of mention if we have time. Another $8 million from here.
Yeah, the
another $8
Ohio
million.
Street project.
Ohio Street's another $8 million.
And isn't that dead in the water right now? Something was left out, and now they have to go back for a
And I
permit?
haven't done my homework. I was going to call
Okay,
IDEM
okay.
and ask them, did they get their Army Corps 404 permit for the waterway? And if they're working on it, when do they think that's going to
And
happen?
that's because they're discharging water into the Spreebo Pond arm and the current rainwater runoff system
Yes.
to take care of all the runoff. And you know we've had a lot of that.
You're-
This last rain was 5.2 inches of rain.
Okay, you're going to let me...
Okay, I'll be
You're going
quiet.
to let me go a little further off of the subject.
All right, I'll be
and I
quiet.
want to, because I drove by down Ohio Street right after the rain.
Yeah.
And we drove all over the county. County has a lot of trouble. People have water in their basement.
Oh.
Things are happening in this county. South County, we don't pay much attention to, but South County, my phone, you might hear the buzzing. It's going to go off here, and I'll turn the ringer off. But they're having serious issues in South County. They got 7+ inches of rain down by the Kankakee, and we don't pay too much concern about it, but we should, because that's where our food comes from. If those fields are flooded and they can't get in there to plant their crops this year,
It's
we all
disastrous.
pay. We all pay. But anyway, so Ohio Street, I drove down. Drove through there after the storm, not very long after the storm. You know what? It was dry as a bone. It worked fantastic. And we haven't spent one dime yet. But no, we're going to spend $8 million for
On one
something
street.
that works.
For a system,
I
yeah.
thought for sure I was going to go down there and see puddles and backups and people's yards flooded. Nope. It was dry. And before I leave it, we did the same thing. Well, us people who live in the Michigan City area in the county, we took the same thing on 400 all the way from Ohio east to, I think it's 900. We widened that road, put a turn lane in, put curb and gutter in, filled in the ditches and put pipes in.
How much?
I don't remember how much. This is a guy, but we did the same thing over there that we're going to do in Ohio. Well, I don't think we need it. Can we just fix the pipe? That's supposed to be old. I understand there's a pipe, storm sewer pipe that is getting rusty and it's old. Well, so that's fine. Fix it. But we're going to take swales, which are great for the environment, and we're going to fill them in, cover them up, and run all those pollutants, and pollutants can mean sand and dirt and road debris and whatever else, and oils and gasolines that come off our cars,
yep.
right into the ditch. We're going to trap it in a pipe and punch it at the ditch. When right now it's coming off Ohio, and you can drive down Ohio, the nice little gentle swales and grass that grabs those pollutants and holds them and protects our waterways. That waterway is not too far from Lake Michigan. Anyways, I diverged and I shouldn't have. 80-20.
No, that's
20-80.
okay, because our viewing audience needs to understand what that is. That you have a natural flow, and to some extent, it can take care of itself. And to add what Tony said, $8 million not only to replace an aging stormwater pipe, but to replace sanitary sewer system that was replaced, what, 6 or 8 years ago?
Oh, and I understand at the meeting that they
And
talked
water
about
piping.
the lift station we just fixed not too long ago. I want to say 4 years ago. They might be moved. What are we doing? Anyways, the 80-20, 20-80. If we're going to, we brought it up because of the South Shore
Oh, yeah.
and any
900
other projects.
started out. It's a moving target, so I can't honestly tell you. I cannot honestly tell you, as we sit here right now, what the bottom line is, because it's been a moving target all
Wait a minute,
along.
but it's been a moving, increasing target.
Yeah, increasing.
It hasn't gone down ever,
No,
not once.
No, it hasn't gone down.
It's always up.
Started out at $904 million, which the lakefront
Oh.
communities were going to cover 50% of that.
Yeah, the news thing I saw on Chicago Station was something about the South Shore project got put on the federal list of projects. Doesn't mean we're going to get it, but we got put on. We're still on the list. But they said in doing so, they added the interest costs onto those projects that were not on there in the first place. So the project went up, I think, another $100 million.
Oh my God.
So they said, if you want a project, you have to show us what the interest you're going to pay is, and we will include that in the request. We're not going to say there's no interest here. So that got added in this new federal. So I think ours was $330 million, and Lake County Extension was 600 and some million, 650 million.
Yeah.
So $330 million. What's 20%?
30, 60.
$66 million
Yeah.
that we thought we were going to pay has now come, what, 270, 260? But it's now become 265. And we know where that's coming from. That's coming from every one of us because they will bond, they will borrow.
Yeah, the local municipalities are responsible for the bonds. So,
Or private company says, I'll do it, but I want part of the fare. I want to get paid back.
Michigan City's indebtedness will go up. And to be honest, to me, I look at the whole project, I see the only area that's benefiting is the spur that's going to go down to the St. John area.
Oh yeah, St. John,
Because today,
Crown Point.
all those riders in that area, they're trucking it up to the Indianapolis Boulevard station to catch a train every day. It has a parking lot that's about
It's
6 or
huge.
7 football fields big.
Oh, it's huge.
It's full every day.
The overflow.
Yeah, they'll be catching it at home. So the Indianapolis Boulevard station will maybe become a ghost town. I don't know.
I find that incredibly interesting when I think about it. And anyone can go online. You can read the 2040 comprehensive plan of the North of the NERC,
Northern Indiana.
Regional Plan Commission.
Yep.
And they are trying to, the whole plan, and it's an award-winning plan, is trying to get people to come back to the centers of town and redevelop those. When this corridor will do one thing and one thing only. If they don't have to drive to Indianapolis Station,
Yeah.
guess where they can move? Oh, further south.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So they could sell their home in Crown Point, buy more land, bigger house, probably better school,
Yeah.
a better area of living, and still drive 20 minutes to get on this train in Crown Point. Instead of driving all the way up to Indianapolis.
Instead of economic development in the
It's just-
in the Highland, Indianapolis, East Chicago, Hammond area, the
More
growth
urban
will be
sprawl.
in. Yeah.
More urban sprawl, which means less farm ground, which means more stress on the environment, which means and don't get me wrong here, I don't fault people for doing that. In fact, that was probably by the last NERC meeting I attended when I asked their consultant, did they consider things when you talk about people's lives? Did you consider the tension that people are under when they live in high density areas? We're talking noise, pollution, crime. Maybe we'll bring it up later. Everything that happens, and that's why people leave. Cost of living, education, quality of living.
You know, the funniest things come to mind I love famous sports quotes and any kind of quotes. And when you talked about how this is going to be all urban sprawl and no development in the redevelopment in the populated areas, it makes me, and I've criticized our local governments before for knee-jerk reaction projects and lack of planning. This makes me think of a saying that the famous baseball manager Casey Stengel, who was a legend in his day, said when he managed the 1969 Mets and they were on a record-setting losing streak. He looked up and down the dugout and he said, "Ain't there anybody here knows how to play this game?" You know, it's not rocket science. You just got to sit down and take your time and get it in mind what you want to do.
Well, you've sat on boards and I sit on boards, and sorry, a lot of things happen, and it's sad that a good amount of time you get to a group think. And we've seen this, we've been watching, and I've always watched meetings. Ohio Street, for example, I did watch the redevelopment, and was Don Babcock. He asked for the fees in line for engineering this project because they were up at a $1.6 million in fees and design inspection fees. And they got the standard answer, yeah, it's all good. We watched these meetings, and I don't remember one time, and we're talking redevelopment commission, sanitary board, maybe council, where they said, no, there's no motion to approve. Second, all in favor for extras, addendums, extra costs. Oh, these weren't foreseen. Oh, we're just going to pay them. One time where someone said, no, I'm not paying it. No.
Yeah.
We contracted you as a professional to tell us what we need, bring it to us. You covered all the bases. No, we're not paying anymore. You eat it.
What Tony's talking about are standard conditions in the engineering and construction industry of what they refer to as either a lump sum or a firm price contract. All the entities, the engineering firm for the engineering of the project, the construction companies, they get a completed set of plans and specifications. And they're given time to bid, and when that price comes in, it is supposed to be 100% inclusive. And these entities, engineering and construction companies, have what they call errors and omissions insurance. Any reputable company has that. So why then, if there's something that's overlooked, do they come back to the city and say, oh, whoops, we didn't realize this was going to happen?
Another $150,000.
Yeah, please give us another $150,000, or whether it's the Board of Public Works, or whether it's a redevelopment commission, or the sanitary district. I have a motion, yay, done.
We're paying it. No questions asked. We got the money. Pay them. Anyways, back to 80-20. We diverse. We digress. 80-20. So we have to be very careful here. 80-20. That's a complete shift. It's not going to be fun. You know, do we beat it up enough? 80-20, and we might bring it up again. It's 20-80.
What it's going to affect is the ability of Michigan City to bond, which I'm not crazy about anyway. As I've said, a bond is a loan. Currently, Michigan City is $69 million in debt, principal plus interest on, I think the number is 10 or 11 outstanding loans or bonds. And Michigan City has several times refinanced bonds.
Yep, go to the next
They've
slide.
done that
Yours.
to keep these TIF districts alive because the state of Indiana closed the TIF program out because too many communities were sitting on the money and they were not using it to redevelop blighted, depressed areas.
They were using it for other things.
They were using it for other things. And so now Michigan City has refinanced several of these TIF area bonds rather than paying them off to keep that TIF area alive so that they can keep drawing these revenues down, which, again, as I've said, is your money. It's taxpayer money, property tax money.
If you weren't paying bonds, you would hopefully see less increase in taxes or a rebate.
Possibly
maybe your taxes would go down. But yeah, now
I mean, when the redevelopment commission is sitting on $30 million in a TIF area, like it was for a long time, that's a lot of tax money.
Now bonds, granted, and this is where we pay finance people to help us, and we try to make good decisions. Like you said, the quote with the baseball guy. We try to make good decisions. So this is where, if we did a bond, say when the interest rates were high, was 6%, and all of a sudden now they're down at 0.25%, we should rebond that. We should rebond that to reduce the cost, but we shouldn't be allowed to increase the span of the bond. We should just be able to lower the interest rate.
See, because by law, I don't think I said this. By law, a TIF district cannot be closed out. A TIF program cannot be closed out till all existing bonds are paid off. So if you've got 6 years left in a bond, even if you refinance that bond at a lower rate, if you refinance it for another 20 years, you've just kept that TIF district alive for another 14 years. You had 6 and you added 14 to that. So and you're drawing in revenues for that. But if you're not using them, what are you doing? Are you really doing anything good?
Well, that was the point of Tax Increment Finance District, TIF district, to create some money to redevelop blight areas and then get it back off of there as quickly as you can so that money gets spread back to the taxpayers and reduces their tax burden. But it's not happening.
No.
It has not happened. I don't know. I can't recall any place where that has happened that said, okay, $20 million we need, we fixed it up, it's growing great, everyone's paying taxes, the bond's paid off, in the TIF district, reduce the tax burden.
Conceptually, it was a good program because Indiana, Kokomo, Fort Wayne, several areas
Gary,
have been heavy in the automobile industry. The ones I'm talking about, Kokomo and Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
Up here, you got
Elkhart.
steel. You got East Chicago, Hammond, Gary. And it was a good program when it came into effect. But like any program, when you add the human element, then you got problems with it living up to what it conceptually was designed to do.
So we get to the topic, bonding and rebonding. So the legislature said, enough. We know what you're doing. We know the game you're playing. We thought it was a great idea that if the interest rates were high, A, you should be smart enough not to bond. But if you did, and you needed it, now interest rates were low, you rebonded at the low interest rates, but you're extending these bonds out, so you're really just gaming the system. So they said, no, enough. We're done. No more bonding and rebonding. The bond you got is what you get. Sorry, that's what you're stuck with.
Spend your money wisely.
Spend it wisely and think about it next time when you do it.
Speaking of spending money wisely, every time I think of that, 6 or 8 foot high sign on the side of the old police station that says, "You are beautiful." Isn't that what it says?
Oh, you are beautiful. Yeah.
You are beautiful.
Is that a wise money of TIF funds?
That was $35,000 or $40,000 paid for by Redevelopment Commission, I believe. Either them or the city. Either one should.
Somebody paid.
And when that site is developed, eventually that sign's going to be torn down.
Man, maybe you weren't here, but I remember distinctly the planters all along Franklin. I think there was 30,000 each. Paid for by redevelopment.
Was that a Sheila Brilson project?
Yeah, did that do anything to increase the tax base of Michigan City? These planters, they're still there. Everyone sees them as you go down there. They're down there. Was that a wise use of funds? What this came up because we get in the email, and I usually forward it to Dwayne, is the National Association of Counties. And they are trying very hard, as one of their key items is to reverse this rebonding because they say it's costing communities millions of dollars that they couldn't reap by rebonding with low interest rates. Now, that's a two-sided argument because if interest rates are low, yes, they could save money. But on the other side, interest rates are not low. They're going up. We shouldn't be bonding at all at this point.
No.
A, the economy should be doing good enough that you get tax revenue. And B, you're not going to pay extra money for a bond at instead of 0.25% or 3/4 or 1 1/4, now at 3 or 4%. It's not going to work. You're not going to be allowed to rebond. So you better be very careful about your bonding. They're not going to allow you. And I think the article came out and said that they got to the U.S. representatives, and I believe a representative from Texas, if I'm correct, said, "No, we're not doing this. It's stuck. No more bonding and rebonding. We're done with this. You guys, you gamed the system. You paid the price." So that brings us up to education.
Yep.
Indiana, and I think it was unanimous vote, the State House, the state representatives, to fund $75 million for education in Indiana. Sounds great.
But explain what it is.
But all it was to close the gap on the funding shortage that didn't get put in the 2-year budget.
Yeah.
They didn't realize there's more students in public schools than they thought, and the upper limit was set by statute. They had to fund $75 million more. That's the way I read the bill.
Yep. Now,
I wanted to bring this forward because you know me, beating you to death. $2 billion, and I think it might be more because the last I read, the last quarter, Indiana got more revenues in than it expected. So, that's the budget is a budget. It's kind of a guess. You take the best information and you try to do your budget. Indiana got more money than it expected last quarter. So it might be more than $2 billion in reserve. In my mind, I would have no qualm about spending $1.5 billion. And I say $1.5 billion on education for teachers and classrooms. No administration. You benchmark administration. That cost cannot go up. If you raise your administration cost in any way, you lose part of that funding. 1.5, there is no better money spent, especially sitting in the bank.
I agree with you to an extent, but we do disagree here, because I would say that it should be set at $750 million, because that $2 billion is emergency money if we would have a catastrophic event. If you do $1.5 billion, you leave it to $500 million for emergency money, and I don't think that's enough. But I think what did I say?
Oh, you said $750 million, a quarter of $1.5 billion.
I'd even go as high as $1 billion.
You go $1 billion. You take half of it.
Yeah, I take it as $750 million, but I agree with you, freezing administration sizes and putting the money in the teachers' pockets.
Or classroom.
Smaller
technology,
classes.
Whatever.
Better technology, not Taj Mahals.
No.
Just, you get what you need, Rolling Stones, but not what you want.
You get what
you need.
Yeah, it's a question of comfort level. How much money does the state need to sit on, like we do in all our private worlds? Do you got $100 in the bank, or do you got $1,000? What are you comfortable with to get you through a tough time? How much money is in your bank account that you can pay for the groceries or gas before the next paycheck comes in? I see. I'm willing to take the chance. I don't think there's there's no better investment. And I just read an article, I believe it was online from Fortune, and it was a big web front page that we don't have enough qualified people. So there's no better investment. And I would push the limit. That's why I'm saying $1.5 billion. It's not a comfort factor that the state would have a $1.5 billion gone, but I think it's worth it. Let me put it this way. If this was 5 years ago when the economy was bad, I would say $1.5 billion. I might say $750 million. Today, if it's raining, we ought to be saving. When it's sunny and everything's good, we ought to be investing. We don't hold money in good times expecting bad times to come.
Without gaining interest on the money.
We invest. Every good billionaire or businessman in this world knows now's the time to make your run.
It's my understanding that as we sit here, it's a requirement that teachers get their master's degree within so many years and get their doctorate's degree, PhD, within so many years after that. But there's no increase in salary. There's no reward for it. They have to do that to keep their job.
Well, I think that's for, what do they call those courses? For the courses they teach that are higher education courses, like, what do they call those courses? I can't.
Core?
No, not the core courses, the advanced AP courses, advanced placement. So the college credit courses, ABET accreditation and most accreditation tells them they have to have a master's or a PhD in the field they study, or they cannot teach high school kids those advanced placement courses and get college credit. I think my heartburn is just to keep their job. Yeah.
And it costs them
keep their job.
A lot of money to get these additional credentials.
Oh yeah, go online.
Yeah.
See how much it costs to get your master's. You're talking like $10,000 to $15,000. This is not cheap.
And great, I got my master's. Now I can keep my job.
At the same pay?
Yeah. That's
so
not right. That's not right.
So so that could be used. The $1.5 billion could be used to pay for these teachers, as long, and this happens in the corporate world all the time. I saw it when I was in college, and I'm sure it happens today. You have students that have worked in a co-op, or they worked during their college career for a big company, and they say, we really like you, and we want to keep you, and we're going to give you these benefits. You can start when you graduate and get this salary, say $50,000. It's probably low. But if you would like to go to graduate school, we'll pay you and you can still work on and off for us in the summers or off times, and we'll pay you for your graduate school, but you got to sign an agreement that you're not going to leave for 3 years or you're going to pay us back.
Yeah, there's got to be give and take. My younger son is right on the verge of getting his CPA license. He works for an accounting firm in the Washington, D.C. area, and he has been told, it's in writing, that his package of income plus benefits is going to increase in so many areas once he gets that license. It's mind-boggling. It just blew me away when he told me.
Even better. They don't have to pay for it. They just say, when you get your master's, you get a 10% or 20% bump. When you get it, this is what you get, because the state's going to back us up.
There's something at the end of the tunnel other than a train.
But that's what we want to have the discussion, because Dwayne and I talk about that. In my mind, it's sunny, economy's great, we're booming, stock market's up, we're struggling for workers who are educated and prepared, and this doesn't have to be college, it could be trade school.
Trade schools.
We're even struggling worse for trade school people.
Not enough plumbers, carpenters, electricians,
steel workers,
laborers, iron workers, everywhere. Not enough
carpenters.
of them around.
We're struggling.
Too many of them are my age. We got to have a future. We got to have these young kids getting into it. It's a great way to make a living.
If the education system, and we saw it in this town in A.K. Smith Center, which is fantastic, and needs money and needs help, and so do every community and school center needs their own little A.K. Smith Center. They're trucking them here to Michigan City, which is great for us.
Yeah.
But they need to push LaPorte, New Prairie, Westville, Chesterton. They all need to have some emphasis on trades, because there's money to be made, good careers, good people. That's why I'm saying $1.5 billion. Take the money and invest it in our citizens. The study has proven over and over and over again, you will get jobs, your house values will increase, your revenues increase, your quality of life increases, everything is better. But we got 75 million. Even if you said half of mine, half of mine would have been, and we're talking about 1.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
That's 1,500 million. We got 75 million.
750 million.
Yeah.
10 times what the state is putting in.
So we did
This is unacceptable.
a stopgap. And Dwayne and I talked about
plug
this
another hole in a dike.
Barely. We talked about this too, and I'm sure people are watching the show understood the same thing I understood, and the same thing Dwayne understood. When we get this lottery, it's going to education.
Oh,
When we get the casino, it's going to education.
everything that came across the table in Indiana was going to fix the problems. First, it was the toll road. Then it was lotteries back in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Then it was riverboat gambling.
Oh, yeah.
Everything is, what's the old political song? Happy times are here again?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then we found out what they did. Okay, education funding is X. We're getting X times 2 in revenue. Well, yeah, we funded education to its limit, and we took the rest of the money and we siphoned it off. We got to be honest here. Some of that siphoning saved us in our car registration bills. Some of that siphoning has saved us in pensions, police, fire, teachers. Some of that siphoning has saved us in
what is this new situation going to do, this infrastructure plan?
Oh.
What is it going to do to our next topic, interstate toll roads?
Interstate toll roads.
I mean, the number that
It's
I remember that Indiana projected for its road maintenance plan was $800 million. Now, if that $800 million is 20%, then, and the federal government was going to kick in the other 80, then that automatically reverses to where the federal government's kicking in $800 million, and the state of Indiana is kicking in 4 times that, or $3.2 billion. Our cost by the new infrastructure plan will be $3.2 billion, and the federal government will kick in $800 million.
I thought the number was 56 billion in potential revenue. It was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge. I could be wrong. But anyways, we want to bring this up because now you talk about interstate tolling. And I brought it back because I read an article in Northwest Indiana Times. It's great how you read these articles, and sometimes you put two and two together and you realize, that relates to what we were talking about. So, in 2015, a state law targeting Hammond's rental registration and inspection program, a law stopping Hammond's or capping Hammond's rental registration and inspection program was ruled unconstitutional by Indiana Court of Appeals. Basically, the state said you could collect fees, but it could only be, $5 annual fee. But Bloomington and West Lafayette were exempt from this law. Hammond said no fair. It's either all of us or none of us. You can't pick and choose. And they're right. So I pulled up the decision. And I've heard this before, and I didn't know where it was. Section 23 of the Indiana Constitution. Here we go. We need Burl Burgle there. Indiana Constitutional.
Yeah, where's Burl?
Well, maybe he'll email us or call us. Section 23 is to prevent the legislator from providing a benefit to or imposing a burden on one locality and not others. And here's, Article 4, Section 23, the General Assembly is instructed that where a general law can be applicable, where it can be made applicable, all laws shall be general and of uniform operation throughout the state. Now, if it's general, that means there's no need to split it apart. And Hammond says, well, they split off West Lafayette and Bloomington. Not fair. You can't split off. Indiana does not pick winners or losers. We all abide by the same laws, or we don't. Because I think and one part I read, one of the court decisions was we'd have a patchwork of laws that would be unbelievably impossible to follow. So if I move from St. John to Hammond, I got a different law that I can't. I have to have a star on my license plate, or I have to have a dot on my license plate. You can't. It has to be uniform and applicable to the whole state. That's why we brought back interstate tolling. So interstate tolling is only in a study, so there's probably no law broken here. But it says 465 will not be tolled.
Yeah.
How will that hold up in Indiana courts if so chosen, if the law passes, and if somebody chooses to take it to court? Because any law can be passed.
Which probably the most affected area by that is northern Indiana. I-94 and I-65.
Yeah, probably the highest used road.
Yeah.
The Borman.
Tremendous source of revenue.
And if I remember correctly, the studies show that the Borman up there in Hammond and Gary and Lake County is used a lot by locals.
Yeah.
Instead of driving on a local street, surface streets, they get up on 94, go down 2 exits, and get back off.
Well, the workers, local living area workers will be affected by this very, very much. And everybody will be affected because of the shift in the traffic.
We will. Michigan City will.
Oh, absolutely. The trucks will be jumping off of I-94. They'll be traveling when they want to go east and west. They'll be traveling. They'll jump off the toll road. And I-94, they'll be traveling Highway 30, 20.
We will hit bad.
12.
20 and 12.
421 instead of I-65. So and I think I mentioned on our last program, an old timer, when I mentioned it to him, he said, oh my God, once upon a time, before an I-94 was in, they used to call Highway 20 Bloody 20. There were so many accidents on there.
That's probably the reason we have I-94. I-94 is not that old. You're talking like what?
1960, 71. 71, 72 area.
They didn't finish the section between LaPorte and New Buffalo till like the 70s. That section sat empty. But also, it affects us because a lot of our people live here, work in the mills, and they take 94. And now they're going to pay. But what I wanted to bring is, we don't pick winners and losers. And if I was a state senator from anywhere other than 465 in Marion County, I would start to suit up myself. If they passed a law that says everyone's going to get told except 465 around Indianapolis, I'd say I'd vote no. And I don't care what party you're from, I'd say politically, I will not accept this. Either everyone plays fair or no one plays. We're not picking winners and losers.
Nope.
Because
Indiana, we all win or we all lose.
what happens? If 465 is not tolled and every other interstate is, guess where business would like to go to? Guess where people would like to move to? Guess where workers would like to go to?
Yep.
Not here. Ding number 1, 94 is tolled. Ding number 2, they're on state roads killing people. Ding number 3, it's not a good quality of life anymore.
No, quality of life goes down.
I can't believe present state senators and present representatives were not in arms about this across the state. No. Unless this document says every interstate is on the table, answer is no. I don't care what your allegiance is. I don't care what party. I don't care what you promise me. I will fight for my community tooth and nail. If it's not fair, not playing. And that's why I wanted to bring it back up. Hammond, this is years of court cases. I don't know how much money they
Hammond's
spent.
an active community. Hammond was one of the communities that for a while, I don't know what the situation is now, but for a while said, we're not in this mix for the double track. We don't see any benefit. We can't afford it. Gary said that we're absolutely out. Every penny that we have needs to go to redevelopment. So I don't know where they're all at on the double tracking, but Hammond and Gary were two of them that said they were out for a while.
Oh yeah, what
And
happened?
then the state counteracted this. The House and the Senate said, fine, you want to be that way,
We're taking your money.
we'll take your money. Your tax revenues that come to you from us, we'll just take it out of your tax
We'll
revenues.
take it out. We're not going to give you a choice. We'll take your money.
That fight is yet to be fought, I think.
Oh, I think so,
We've-
especially now with a 2080.
Yeah, we've seen only the tip of the iceberg on that.
I don't think it's a matter of people just against it. I think it's a matter of dollars and cents. They're stretched already. They knew they were stretched already to give
Yeah.
any money. And then the government said, well, I don't care. You promised, we're taking it. And now they're going to say, okay, quadruple your money. They couldn't afford it in the first place. And I think rightly so, they have a good argument that if this creates urban sprawl, that's bad for them. The urban core becomes more diluted and less tax revenue, and they hurt even more. I mean, right now, I don't remember what the court case was. A community is trying to withdraw from its township because their poor relief is going to Gary, and they're putting the money in, and all the money is going to poor relief in Gary, which needs it, and they're getting nothing.
Yeah.
So they're saying, wait, we're out. We're out. We have the education, the high value homes, and the workers, and all our money is being siphoned off to other people. So they're petitioning the state to de-annex.
Yeah. You're going to see more of this because municipalities are becoming more hard-nosed about this. They're not just accepting what the state legislature legislates. They're not accepting it anymore.
And I didn't try to do that, but that brought me to the article. It's in the paper.
Oh boy.
I'm glad the mayor's having a forum and meeting and greeting people, but there's lots of people on these cable access shows. There's lots of news out there. A lot of people talking. Here we are. We're here. We can't scream any louder that we do the research and we look at this stuff, and so does everyone else. I mean, it's not hard to get together or just listen. I guess it's a question. Are you listening? Are you actually hearing or not? But then the paper says somebody questioned a resident of Pop Park questioned the annexation of the town to Michigan City. And the mayor said it would be a merger, not an annexation.
Oh my God. Tony told me this just before the show. I didn't go to that session. I had a previous commitment, and too many times those type of events, a lot of the schedules, or excuse me, a lot of the questions are pre-selected. They're planted.
They wouldn't do that.
They're planted in the audience. But when Tony told me that, the first thing that came to my mind is Lakeland. In 1959, Michigan City took in Lakeland. Huge increase in our population. Allowed us to become a Class 2 city in Indiana rather than a Class 3, which provided us more benefits. What happens is what's happening today as we sit here, 1959, what's that, 50, almost 60 years later, and there are people in Lakeland that do not have city water and city sewer.
So they got mergered, all right.
Yeah, they got mergered or murdered.
They got mergered.
When I got on the council, I asked a couple business people who know what happened. And the explanation I got was if you partner rather than
Then annex.
the annexation laws don't apply and you don't have to give that area. The city is not just Michigan City, the city that generates the annexation doesn't have to provide sewer and water. Not in 5 years, they don't have to provide it.
Ever.
So, Pot Park, be careful. That's all I can tell you. I think it would be good for Pot Park to be part of Michigan City as long as they're treated fairly. If they get what annexed cities are entitled to by law, it's good. If you don't,
I don't agree one bit. Not
with
one
me
bit.
or what?
No, with Pot Park being any part of Michigan City and a merger or anything else.
Why not?
Okay, so Dwayne works at the surveyor's office, so he's seen some of this going on, and we've done this before. The county has groups of professionals: building commissioner, county highway engineer, surveyor, planner. We have groups of technical expertise, and so does Michigan City. They have very good people, and they can choose to do their projects two ways. They can take it, bundle it up, give it to a consultant, design it to the nth degree, make it so detailed that it's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to be expensive. Or the municipality can decide, can we do this work ourselves? 421 and 300 North. I was under the impression for years that the consultant was hired and they were going to put a sewer line under 94 to fix that intersection. It needs it bad.
That's where the car dealership
Car
is.
dealership,
Okay.
Speedway, Patriot Park, that is going to grow and blossom and bloom. It's perfect.
Cool Spring School.
Cool Spring School has their own sewer line.
Yeah.
They already punched under and they already feed a small line to Michigan City. So I'm not a fan. I'm a consultant in the private world. I'm an NDOT consultant. You can look it up. I'm not a fan of what happens in the consulting world when municipalities and elected officials never ask for a price competition. And they say, well, professional service, you can't do it. No, once you pick a guy, you can say, here's the price. If you don't like it, I'm moving to the next guy.
I need to add, that's what Michigan City does.
Michigan City is consulting their work out. So, and most do. Most Indiana, there's very few. So I found out from 421 and 300 North, and I give them kudos to our commissioners here, our county commissioners. We have a talented county highway engineer who is going to, as the county engineer on the county highways, engineer this in-house. Let alone, this project would cost $250,000, $300,000 for engineering. Then probably another $200,000 for inspection. You're talking $500,000 to a private consultant. Our guy, we pay what, probably $80,000 in benefits, is going to do this in-house. The surveyor is going to help him out if we can. I'll personally help him out on my own time. That's what it takes to bring these costs down. And we'll do some topography of these roads and get him something to work on. The data's there. And not only is this potentially a $2.5 million project, if we do this in-house, the county does this. Kudos to these guys. And the county's done this before. When we do bridges, sometimes those are $1 million. You can get those down to $250,000 by taking out the consultant and everything they design in it, because we don't need it. So if the county says, we're going to design this in-house, we're going to save ourselves some money for consulting, and they say, we can do it a different way. This is why I'm going to get back to Potawatomi Park and Trail Creek and Long Beach. We can do this a different way. So it's not $2.5 million. It's $500,000.
Yeah.
If a municipality can save $2 to $2.5 million on one project, It's a no-brainer. And that's why I say Potawatomi Park. You're better on your own. You get your own technical. Maybe somebody lives in your town that can design this and you pay them a small fee. Run this through the government. The government needs to take care of its roads and its infrastructure. They design their own stuff the way they want it, and maybe they get sewers and water in their town for a quarter of the cost. If they go to Michigan City, we have Michigan City standards, and they require things that may not be required. Maybe they just want them.
This is so painful for me to say, but I agree with you. No, when I was looking at annexation, I was thinking of the general services that the Michigan City people receive that the Potawatomi Park people have to pay for, which is
police, fire,
garbage pickup, snow plowing when in winter. I was thinking of those. I wasn't thinking of the substantial additional price that they would have to pay.
Oh, they'll get sewer and water.
Well, a friend of mine has a business out on 400 North. It made me just livid when he told me that he wanted Michigan City water, and he was told, fine, no problem, $5,000 and you can have Michigan City water, you can tie in. It cost him $5,000, and then when he paid the money and he got the paperwork, he was told, all right, now you can cut your contractor loose and he'll do the work. He has to pay for the actual...
Before anything got put in the ground.
Yeah, before anything, the $5,000 was just for the permission to do it. He still has to pay 100% of the cost to bring it from the header to his business. Let me mute this. I'm sorry.
That's my beef. And that's same with Trail Creek, same with Long Beach. I believe government at its lowest level is the best government you get. It might sometimes seem a little more costly, but government closest to the people is the government we want. We all know what happens when you talk about a monarchy. That's called Britain, and we left England. If we're trying to consolidate government, I'm not for it. A merger, a partnership's probably better, just like they have now. I think they're getting police, Michigan City police. You brought up garbage pickup, and Michigan City's garbage pickup is second to none, believe me. But you go to LaPorte, they contract out, and most communities contract out their garbage pickup. I think it's a little more expensive. You don't get the kind of service. I'm sure Potawatomi Park's contracting their service out.
Yeah, I believe they are.
I
was out there just today and saw some of the containers. Yeah,
you talk, and but then they choose. You could choose.
They can competitively bid it.
One guy could team up with people, and they could choose, Able Disposal or Republic or whoever's out there, or Waste Management, and they could choose. So, that's where I digress. That says, Pot Park, stay on your own. If this is a merger or not an annexation, don't do it. I think you can govern yourself. Just takes a little bit of effort. You can do things far better. Maybe you want to partner with a project or something, that's fine, but you don't accept standards that you don't need. Do I need, can I use plastic pipe, or do I have to pay for, clay vitrified pipe for sewer that is 5 times the cost, or do I have to pay for cast iron pipe? I don't want that.
You control your own destiny, yeah.
I control my own destiny.
Well, I'm glad that's over, Tony. It was really hard to say, I agree. The words were right there, I just... All right. What's next?
Well, we only got a couple minutes. I want to surprise you here. Surprise.
Oh, jeez.
We go, and we've been talking, and other people tell us, you guys are a bunch of naysayers. Well, I wanted to be a can-do attitude. So, we want to talk about one thing, and before we do it, I kind of started making a list. Things I think need to be done, and a list, and when they get done, and how they get done. So here's my quick list. I only got a few minutes. Pedestrian crossings, again.
Number 1.
I want to see a date.
Safety of
that was in here. Somebody
our residents
asked,
and children.
School safety. Let's see. Somebody asked about school safety, and the mayor said when it came to street and sidewalks, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing, and we're going to do is repair existing sidewalks and get the ADA compliant. I wanted to, I would expect the mayor to say, listen, yes, we have a safety problem. Our crosswalks need to be set and marked, and we need everyone safe, and signs put up, and blinking signs, and I will guarantee this gets done by May 15th. I will full court press on this. We will get this done, no questions asked. And at
Well,
least we got somebody to put up. Education. I want somebody that says education is going to be a priority. Michigan City Schools are going to be a B or better statewide in 4 years. I'm putting my reputation on it. Water park. We talked about this here. Where's our water park in Lake Michigan? Whiting has one. I will make a water park this year in Lake Michigan, and maybe a zip line too. I mean, put your money where your mouth is.
That's a little lower on our priority list, though.
Yeah,
really.
And that's why it's priority list. Mount Baldy. I will have it open this year. None of this. Well, I don't have any authority, and
We said that last year. I'll open that thing.
So I have a list, and I've been
What did I
trying
say, 200,000?
200,000.
I'll open Mount Baldy.
Open Mount Baldy. So I'm tired of hearing, I don't know, we're working on it, we're looking into it. Every politician can say that. We want to see results. So I've been keeping a list of things we talk about that I think are doable. Crosswalks, easy, easy.
Well, you know, ADA, American Disabilities Act, that has been around forever, and it's necessary, but it's under control.
Well, we could say
We have a
88 in
real-
5 years, I'll be complete.
We have a real issue with safety for children.
Yes, that can be complete. That's in our control. We could have this done and give us a date. May, June, July. I just said May 15th.
Pedestrian crossing, adult pedestrian crossing is, adults are supposed to be more aware of what's going on in children. You gotta protect the children. There was one other one on there that I really feel the need to comment on.
Water park in Lake Michigan. Sure already had it last year. Mount Baldy. Education. Somebody's going to put their name on the line and say, we're going to get our schools to a B or better no matter what. We're going to work at it. The pedestrian crossing must have been, there's a timeline to achieve. Give us a time. Give us a date. We've got years of this.
It's like the lead situation.
Oh, yeah.
Could say.
That's a good one.
It wasn't on there, but you made me think of it when the lead situation. Let's have an advisory committee. Well, you can get information, you can get advice, and the two greatest sources of advice, a bunch of them. Your barber, they know all the problems of the world. They said bartenders solve the problems of the world,
Yeah.
and pharmacists. You ask them ask a pharmacist any question about medicine, he can tell you. Bartenders will tell you how to straighten your life out, and so will your barber. But that doesn't help the lead situation.
Give us a date, and I'm going to work on it, and I'm going to get it done. Get it done.
The city needs to step forward and help these people that bought these houses or had the houses built at a time when the Uniform Building Code said, hey, the piping is okay that you're going to use.
Yeah, about 5
and now
seconds.
It's not.
So,
okay, enough.
We didn't get to it. Good to see. Thanks again for the show.
See you next week.